Every minute of every day, people all across the globe are recording the jaw-dropping and the life-saving.
Oh my God, get back! Clarence! Oh my God!
And the unbelievable.
Oh, there's a baby underneath the car. Seeing the baby under the car was like seeing my own daughter under the car.
And while footage is being shared online more than ever, we're meeting the people who've captured these once-in-a-lifetime moments.
I knew that we were in trouble. I wonder if I'm going to fall into the slipstream of the aircraft.
To get the story behind the footage.
What's this?
Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
There's some bird in my car.
From death-defying escapes.
Stop!
I started to panic. I thought I was going to die.
And incredible life-changing acts.
I was still shaking for quite a while. The adrenaline was still popping.
I had never flown with Dan before.
To heartwarming surprises.
And he just asked me to marry him.
And uncontrollable acts of nature.
Out of nowhere, this avalanche hit me.
These are the moments you'd never believe if they weren't caught on camera. Coming up in the show.
We have adrenaline pumping through our hearts right now.
Open the door right there.
A smarter-than-average bear goes for a spin.
I'm going to open my car to get that bear out. Someone needs to hold open.
Emergency, emergency, emergency. Can you hear me?
A novice pilot performs a solo landing.
Gently start braking now.
You couldn't imagine the force where your arms are being ripped out of your sockets.
And a British woman fights for survival in an avalanche. Air sports, an exhilarating hobby, not without its risks. This skydiver in Florida suffered not one, but two parachute malfunctions in a recent near-death experience. One thing that was working perfectly was his helmet cam, which captured his frantic attempts to free his chute. Thankfully, he cheated death, suffering only minor injuries, landing in a briar patch. And this adrenaline junkie got more adrenaline than he bargained for when his harness separated from his paraglider. Clinging on for dear life, this thrill-seeker eventually crashed onto the beach, avoiding serious injury. South Africa now, a global destination for some of the best skydiving experiences in the world.
My name is Bernard, currently reside in Cape Town.
My name is Paul Marcelin. I live in Johannesburg.
My lifestyle I would describe as adventurous. I like being outdoors, in the mountains, in the sky, in the ocean, anything that involves some sort of adventure activity.
I began jumping, skydiving, when I was 17 years of age at school. And here I am 33 years later.
In October 2021, Paul and Bernard were part of an elite group of skydivers invited to a training camp in South Africa's Mossel Bay.
We woke up, everyone together, had our coffee, looked outside the window, perfect weather. Everyone was super excited to get to the drop zone, get into the plane and do some skydives.
This particular jump was the last jump of the day. So the entire day had unfolded, and this was now probably about 6 p.m. in the evening.
I am the videographer of my formation skydiving teams. They use this footage to debrief and see how they can improve their skydives.
Little did Paul and his team realize that a few last-minute changes to their jump would result in it very nearly being their last.
We had agreed with the pilot to go higher altitude, and that does affect the aircraft control. We adjusted the team's climb out so that we had one more person outside of the aircraft than we had on the previous 2 jumps that day. We obviously discussed this with the pilot. We practiced on the ground before the plane started, and so we were ready to go.
The immediate moments before that particular jumps, I recall, was super calm. Everyone was focused, thinking about their job at hand. I switched on my cameras and we just waited for the pilot to give us the thumbs up to exit.
Then the door opens, obviously cold air and noise rushes into the aircraft.
With skydiving, timing is everything. But things weren't going to plan. By now, there should have been 14 people out of the door, but only 9 had left the aircraft. And to make matters worse, the plane's engines stalled.
I knew that we were in trouble. The nose of the aircraft was lifting, and the plane was moving through a sort of a shuddering sensation. But I couldn't tell anybody about it. It was not possible to communicate effectively.
The nose pitched up, I felt the tail go down, and I knew something was wrong.
The aircraft was now tipping over. Just go, just get out. I'm in free fall. I can see my friends very close around me, but what I can also see, which is super unusual, is a large skydiving aircraft, twin-engine turbine aircraft, coming right underneath me, no more than about 15 meters below me. And I do remember thinking very consciously, I wonder if I'm going to fall into the slipstream of the aircraft.
Skydiving at speed, Paul, Bernard and the rest of the team were in a treacherous situation.
If you get hit by the tailplane, that's undesirable. Yeah. If you fall through the propeller of the plane, clearly uncool.
It gets worse. Some of the skydivers are still trapped inside the plane.
I know none of them got their seatbelts on as everyone was ready to exit the aircraft. So I can just imagine them being flung around in that aircraft.
One of those was highly experienced skydiver Beverly Coslet.
I didn't really know what was happening. I got flung forward and over the one bench, and I was kind of stuck there. And all I could remember from it was seeing my friend Jana, who was kind of bouncing towards the door, and I thought she was doing it on purpose, but she wasn't. She was getting flung towards the door.
With the aircraft continuing to spin out of control, Beverly is helpless as her fellow skydiver Jana is thrown out of the plane.
I'm not a screamer. I'm not going to start screaming and shouting. Nobody did in the plane. The plane was quite quiet. Everybody was just kind of holding still. But, you know, if people were in a plane crash, you always think, well, what were they thinking in their final moments? And there is a sense of acceptance that comes into play to go, I need to stop fighting this. And that's really what happened. It was this sense of acceptance to go, nothing I can do is going to influence this now.
I remember looking around at the rest of the skydivers in the atmosphere at that time. It was clear that everyone's eyes were on the plane in order to see what's going on with the aircraft. Is it recovering?
After the engines stalling and the plane plummeting for 5,000 feet, the pilot finally manages to regain control.
The moment we saw the plane recovering, they've lost a lot of altitude. That's easy to see. They're way below us now, but they're safe, they're fine, everything's cool. And so we looked for each other and we built the best formation we could in the circumstance.
Thanks to the pilot's skill, the plane makes a perfect landing.
There was a sense of relief, a sense of urgency, a sense of gratefulness that we had landed on the ground. You know, the skydivers all got out the plane and we waited for the pilot so that we could give him the biggest hug we could possibly muster, and all walk back to the hangar and join the rest of the team. Finding out that everybody was safe and everybody was fine was a huge relief.
The pilot is the one that's got to take the medals, so to speak. I mean, on the one hand, we were really high, which lent itself to the incident, but on the other hand, being so high allowed the pilot recovery time. So, you know, if for some reason we were lower than that, I mean, that would have been a complete disaster.
Remarkably, everyone made it safely back to terra firma, with every dramatic moment caught on camera.
I took off my cameras, slotted it into the laptop, and we were all kind of in awe with what we saw.
My eyes got a lot bigger seeing what had actually happened in that plane because, you know, being in the plane was a very different experience to getting out of the plane.
This dice with death didn't put any of them off getting back up the very next day, or sharing their remarkable video with the world.
Seeing all the comments and the video going viral around the world, we didn't expect that reaction, and it was kind of overwhelming. My phone was buzzing non-stop.
I was surprised that he managed to get such great footage and get everybody in. All the skydivers that exited the plane were in frame. He even got Jana getting spat out before the plane kind of stabilized.
I had comments from New Zealand, Australia, the UK, America. So it was a bit overwhelming, but also quite cool at the same time.
coming up.
Go up to the door and someone headbutts it, and it's not a person, it's a bear. It's a black bear.
A bear gets behind the wheel without permission.
I've got 15 minutes max before I lose oxygen.
And blood runs cold as this British snowboarder fights for survival. Cameras all over the world record events that, were they not caught on film, would be hard to believe. Like this bull in a China shop. Sorry, this bull in a shop in China. The bull had reportedly escaped from a local slaughterhouse. He swiftly left the building, and thankfully the man caught in the attack recovered from his injuries. Here in Tennessee,
What the hell is that, you guys?
there's another invasion of the animal kingdom.
Oh my word.
This petrol station was infested with mating mayflies.
And somebody's out there, what is he thinking? Pumping gas in this.
When a motorist caught the insects getting it on as they swarmed from the local river. Get a room. But over in Colombia, fast action was needed after the unwanted arrival of this very slow and somewhat dozy sloth on some live electricity wires. Resisting rescue for 20 minutes, the sluggish sloth was finally saved to sleep another day. But for our next journey into the animal kingdom, we're heading to the Tennessee mountains. With a group of friends who, during a weekend getaway, got a little closer to nature than they'd bargained for.
My name is Tanner Deal, and I live in Johnson City, Tennessee. So that weekend, some friends and I decided that we were going to go away on vacation to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. This area is known for their bears. It's a very nice tourist town. It was just a holiday.
And joining him on this memorable trip was friend Kellen Johnson.
You know, we had never really done anything as a group together. It was going to be the 5 of us guys.
We were staying in a cabin that was kind of isolated right on top of a mountain. We kind of spent the day doing all the attractions. We went out and ate, we drank a little bit. And when we finally decided to go back to our cabin,
We drank for the rest of the night until about 3 a.m.
I passed out and was very rudely woken up at about 7 a.m.
Well, I think I was the first one up in the morning because there was a horn, like a car horn going on outside. I stepped out onto the porch and I could immediately see the car was shaking and that the windows were fogged up.
Tanner's car had an unwelcome visitor.
That's when me and Kellen snuck out of the door to go see what was causing this. Both of us were very alert. We had our senses heightened right there. Our hearts were pumping in our chest.
Go up to the door and someone headbutts it, and it's not a person, it's a bear. It's a black bear.
So immediately after that, we were both freaking out and we needed to go get our friends. We needed other people to see this and confirm that we weren't having a little loopy moment right there.
Oh, there's Mama.
Keep recording this. I gotta send this to my insurance.
The whole reason we even started filming in the first place was because Tanner wanted us to claim it for his insurance, and he didn't think they were gonna believe him.
So as I was watching this bear destroy my car, I could just see all these costs rising in my head. And as I was calculating all these costs that I potentially would have to pay for, I started getting angry at the bear.
But what is the best method for getting a bear out of your vehicle?
I don't know.
Get that Just leave the door open. Just open the door right there.
If I open the door, it's gonna shut.
Yeah.
Someone needs to hold open. All gotta be on one side. This shot, actually, I'm getting a little frustrated at everybody, and I started kind of barking commands at them. I'll open the door. I just need all of you on this side. I'm going to open my car to get that bear out. I just need all of you to come up right behind me, and I will hold open the door. We just have to intimidate the bear.
So we got our friends together.
Hey, can we all be on this side? And just follow me right now. Just follow my lead. I know what's happening. I did not know what's happening. This is the only real moment that I kind of felt extremely afraid.
When it stuck its head out of the door, it did not look scared of us at all. It was very happy to be in the car and kind of looked like we were bothering it.
That's when I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing right now? There's a bear right here. Go on, go! Ah! Go, go! Ah! Go, go, go! After we had dealt with the bear situation, we had noticed that pinned on the microwave with a magnet was a pamphlet in how to deal with bears and how to prevent bears from coming in the area. And one of the instructions on there was actually to lock your door. We didn't read that. Of course, I was thinking about my car. I just spoke to insurance. I got them on the phone and started telling them about the situation. And while I was on the phone with them, actually, the bear had came back. And not only that, but it brought its mate to my vehicle as well, and they tried to get back inside of my vehicle. I had to go back out there again. I started yelling at it again. I was throwing stuff like, go away, bear, what are you doing? Bear, get out of here. Didn't we just win over this? I told you to get out. You can't get back inside.
But the incident left Tanner pretty torn up, not to mention his car.
Tanner's car was nice before.
That vehicle, I drove that to high school. I'd had that for a very long time. It was incredible, the speed at which that bear ripped up my car.
It was in total disrepair. Slashes on the back of the headrest, kind of like a horror movie.
And teeth marks all along the seatbelt. So many teeth marks.
But later that night, their encounter with the hairy petrolhead was seen the world over.
I posted the video on TikTok. That's kind of like the only social media I really have. I just kind of posted it there pretty close towards like midnight and didn't think anything about it. And then when I had woken up, it had probably garnered around 100,000 views or something like that. The amount of followers that I started with was probably like 3. And as of right now, I believe I have over 30,000.
For most of us, sub-zero conditions call for gloves and a scarf. For the rare few, it's a pair of swimming trunks. This underdressed athlete in Slovakia was preparing to do a 50-meter swim under the 10 centimeters of thick ice covering this lake. He took his final breath of the chilly winter air before he disappeared under the sheet of ice. As he swam towards a second hole to exit, he became disoriented and didn't know which way to go to get out. His safety team was heard trying to direct the swimmer, while one of them jumped on the ice, hoping to break it. Eventually, the swimmer followed the safety cord back to where he started and escaped unharmed. This is definitely a winter sport not to try at home. Now to Verbier, a lively ski resort in the Swiss Alps, home to Brit Emma Bodkin.
I've probably been snowboarding, oh God, about 15, 20 years. I'm just drawn to the nature, the feeling of being just in the moment, being with your friends on the mountain. It's amazing.
Verbier is famous for its challenging off-piste runs, which make it a mecca for experienced boarders like Emma.
It was the 30th of January, and I was with my best friend, a Dutch girl called Ninka, and there'd just been a huge snowfall. We were just going into this area called Creblé, which is quite a well-known off-piste. And we said, yeah, we'll just do this slope as a warm-up, and we've skied together for about 7 years, so very comfortable with each other.
But snowboarding off-piste carries a far bigger risk. Reaching speeds of up to 80 miles an hour in 5 seconds, avalanches like this are a fast and deadly force of nature that can wipe out anything in their path.
It came from above, and it just pushed me up, like a wave. That's, I say, if you get caught in a big wave, exactly like that. Like, the force was unbelievable. Like, you couldn't imagine the force where your arms are being ripped out of your sockets and you're kind of going backwards and forwards and, like, upside down, so you didn't really know what's happening.
Emma and her friend were now buried deep in a blanket of snow, unable to move and struggling for breath.
I've got 15 minutes max before I, lose oxygen. Every minute counts now, so I was like, am I gonna get out of here? I was completely conscious, and I was like, oh my God, did anyone see me?
But unbeknown to Emma, another skier also on the slopes that day had seen both women get engulfed in the avalanche, and he was capturing it all on his helmet cam.
We saw the entire face going down. So first thing first was like, oh wow, this is huge. And then we look at the bottom of the face and we saw two people snowboarding.
I need to forward.
Help me, please. I was buried facing up, so as soon as they got the shovel near my face, I could breathe.
Okay, you can breathe, easy.
But it took maybe 10 more minutes to dig her out of the snow. We were very happy to see Emma alive and in good health. She was absolutely shocked, but she was doing okay.
By now, Emma feared her friend Ninka had been under the snow for almost 15 minutes.
My friend.
With her odds of surviving slipping by the second.
I thought my friend was also buried. As I came out, I was like, oh my God, find my friend. And then once I got out, obviously it was all just commotion.
Did you find my friend?
Ninka was quickly located further down the mountain and freed. But the precarious state of the snowpack meant a second avalanche was likely, and no one could predict how soon it would strike.
I was helping Emma, and we just saw another huge avalanche going down, like just 100 meters next to us. So it was very, very, very stressful.
Emma and Ninka were whisked to hospital by helicopter, where they were checked over and released the same day.
So I literally went back on my snowboard 2 days later because I had a friend visiting, and I went on the piste and I was covered in bruises. I was in so much pain, but I was like, oh my goodness, like, I can't stay in the house because you kind of have this like mad adrenaline energy and you can't calm down. So I just channeled all my energy into snowboarding just to release, and I think that's how the body deals with trauma. I think anyone who's had a near-death experience, it's definitely not negative. It just made me a lot more courageous in doing the things I want to do, just going in my own path, living like how I want to live.
Coming up.
My heart kind of sunk. I got a knot in my stomach. It was bad.
A quick-thinking stranger tries to save a baby who stopped breathing.
I guess it just feels that I captured the event that no one else would have been able to see.
And a rookie pilot is landed in big trouble. When wild weather attacks, it doesn't hold back. Customers and employees at this car dealership in Pennsylvania run for their lives.
What just happened?
When an unexpected tornado hits,
Are you kidding me right now?
hiding in the bathroom, they emerge to find a scene of total destruction, with the dealership looking more like a scrapyard than a car showroom.
Bro, look at the cars, bro.
Amazingly, they were back on the road and open for business after just 2 weeks. In North Carolina, a ferocious storm turned this family home into a houseboat in seconds flat. Fortunately, there was no one in. And passengers on this ferry in Germany were left shocked and soaking wet after huge waves shattered the vessel's windows during Storm Yelenia. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured. Now to Seattle, and the idyllic spot that was once the home of Dee Dee and James Fritz, before moving very unexpectedly.
Perkins Lane was a little slice of secluded heaven. You're in the middle of the wilderness, it seemed. It was absolutely amazing.
But in January 2022, the couple's picture-perfect suburban life with their 2 dogs, Sammy and Lily, would collapse. Literally.
It was January 7th. It had been raining really hard for days.
We lived at the bottom of this huge cliff, and I was starting to make lunch and heard a very loud crack, and I thought, uh-oh, that's not good.
I didn't really understand what was going on.
This huge section just gave way.
What had happened was the hill came down all at once, and it pushed the house 20 feet, and the back wall collapsed on us, and the whole second floor collapsed on top of us. Dee Dee had the whole back wall pinning her, and my legs were pinned underneath the refrigerator with the house on top of it, and the side of the house kind of cracked open.
I just had this thought that we were gonna die right there.
Trapped for more than half an hour, Dee Dee managed to escape and raise the alarm. But the situation for James was getting ever more perilous.
We did hear en route that there was one person trapped. We knew that there was a fire going on.
What the fire crew found was a burning tank of liquid gas, and James trapped under the weight of the collapsed house.
When the first responders showed up, they said they couldn't get me out right away because they had to put the fire out, and they had to make sure that they were safe.
I had no idea what his injuries were. I didn't know if they were gonna have to amputate his legs. I didn't know if he was internally injured. I didn't know the extent of any of it.
A woman inside the home managed to climb out, but the man who lived there got pinned down under the debris. Firefighters had to dig through the wreckage to pull him out.
We put him in a basket, and we attached a rope system to him, and we lowered him down.
I just couldn't believe it. I was so thankful.
And, you know, when we finally got us into the ambulance, you know, we were asking about our dogs. And that's when they told us that Lily had passed.
The loss of their dog, Lily, was devastating enough, but their other dog, Sammy, was also feared dead. So in the days that followed, Dee Dee and James made desperate visits to the ruins, hoping to find their missing pet.
My husband, James, every day he would go there.
We screamed and called Sammy's name for days.
We originally thought that Sammy was killed instantly because we never heard anything. But there was this nagging in the back of our head, what if she were alive?
6 days since losing their home in the landslide, and just as they thought all hope was lost,
he heard the faintest whimper.
And I thought, like, my mind was playing tricks, you know? And I was like, Sammy? And then I heard it again, really faint. I called Dee Dee up, and I said, Sammy's alive. I heard her. I'm telling you, she's alive.
This was a very dangerous situation. Our house was not stable, and these rescue team were working for hours.
Just tearing it apart section by section, you know, with guys crawling underneath the house, crawling through the living room, crawling through what was left of the kitchen.
So as you can imagine, there was kitchen cabinets we were cutting through. There were drawers of silverware and dishes. And after cutting through one stud bay, we ended up seeing a little nose and two eyes looking up at us.
He's okay. And she held on. I mean, 6, almost 7 days, buried under the entire house. And they carried her down the ladder to the ambulance. Her poor eyes were so red. I got in the ambulance, and she just was licking me. She's one resilient pup. We just need to be grateful for each day and live each day to the fullest. There was a reason that we weren't killed. There's a reason that we are all still here. I don't understand any of it, but we have to live our best lives.
the fight for a seat on the train can be faintly terrifying. However, when this commuter in Argentina passed out, they fell onto another traveler, pushing them into the path of an oncoming train. With the train approaching, the quick collective action of the others on the platform saved the day. This dramatic police body camera footage shows officers desperately trying to save a driver unconscious at the wheel of a burning car. Thanks to the help of these officers, he escaped without serious injury. But in our next story, a professional stepping in to save the day was not an option. Perth in Western Australia, a 17-hour flight away, home to one of the largest pilot training bases in the country, and also to this chap, 31-year-old Max Sylvester.
I've always wanted to learn how to fly and get in the air and see what it feels like. I was a bit afraid of heights when I was a little bit younger, but I always thought, well, you just got to do something, and at least if you get it done, you get over your fears eventually.
Happily, Max conquered his fears by becoming a qualified pilot. But it was during one of his very first flying lessons back in 2019 that he faced every rookie pilot's worst nightmare. And it was all caught on camera by plane enthusiast Mark McCormick.
I've always kind of liked aviation and generally plane spotting. Sometimes I've been at the airport for like a full day if I'm waiting for one particular plane.
As well as his camera, Mark also carries a scanner, a radio that means he can hear the communication between pilots and air traffic control. And as a situation with one plane in particular started to unfold, he couldn't believe his ears.
Emergency, emergency, emergency. Can you hear me? Jandakot Tower, I can hear you. What's the problem?
What Mark was hearing was something extraordinary. Max's flight instructor had passed out mid-air, leaving this rookie learner flyer in sole control of the plane.
Obviously, being my third lesson, I wasn't expected to be able to know all the ins and outs. He was obviously telling me what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, I looked over and realized that he was convulsing and having a full seizure. At first, it was like, I just needed to make sure that he doesn't like slump forwards and essentially push onto the controls. Like if we were to crash or anything was to happen, there's a residential area all underneath us. It was kind of like, oh my God, now I've got to do this all by myself.
He needed help, and he needed it fast.
It was a little bit of a panic at first. How do I get onto the radios? How do I talk to somebody? How do I tell somebody what's going on? Are they going to be able to help me?
Have you landed any aircraft before by yourself or with someone else at the controls with you? No, I haven't. Instructor at the moment, are they unconscious? He's leaning over my shoulder. I'm trying to keep him up, but he keeps falling down.
Rob had stopped shaking. He was completely unconscious, and I honestly thought that he was dead on my shoulder.
There was only one thing for it, and that was for Max, with just 2 hours of flying under his belt, to land the plane himself.
You're doing a really great job. I know this is very stressful, but you're doing an amazing job, and we're going to help you get down to the ground, okay?
By now, the emergency services were racing to the airfield, and bystanders like Mark watched the drama unfold.
So at the right-hand side of the window, you're going to see runway 30, and that's the threshold that you're going to land on. Now back towards the field, we'll keep you nice and close to the airfield. I'll turn right so I can start heading back towards the airport.
I just need to be practical, listen to what they're telling me to do, and just, you know, follow their instructions.
If you want, you can start making a nice gentle descent back towards the runway and sort of start winding you up and get a feel for what it feels like to start descending and landing towards the runway. Copy that. Thank you, Foxtrot Romeo. Just a little bit more engine power, please. You're dropping a little bit too low there. Yep, that's great. Just a little bit more power. Make sure you're aiming the nose at the threshold. It's the one with the red light sticking on it. Copy that.
Then all the people around us started cheering and applauding. And you could hear all the fire trucks and the ambulances and the rest of the emergency services moving out.
Gently start braking now, and you're down on the ground. You did it, mate. Well done.
It was just like, oh my God, my legs were jelly. It was almost like a numb feeling, I guess. I suppose it's almost like shock.
That's amazing. You've done so well. Just brake right there on the runway, and we're going to have all the vehicles come out and meet you on the runway. Congratulations on your first solo.
Rob, the unwell instructor, was rushed to hospital. After treatment, he made a full recovery. Within days, Mark's video of the unbelievable landing had been propelled across the world.
I guess it just feels that I captured the event that no one else would have been able to see if there was no footage, so I was able to bring the great story out there and show everyone what happened.
I had actual flight instructors and commercial pilots and everything like that, emailing me and messaging me on Instagram and saying even they struggle to do landings like I had, so I was pretty stoked. If I could do this with 2 hours of flying, what could I do with, thousands of hours of flying?
Coming up,
immediately, a shock of lightning went through me, and I knew exactly what to do.
a stranger steps in to try and save a baby's life. Sometimes superheroes don't wear capes, they wear high-vis jackets. Like this crossing guard in Maryland, whose quick reaction saved a child when this car failed to stop. Our hero was clipped by the car, but the youngster was unharmed. After a few days' rest, the crossing guard was back at work. What a Wonder Woman. This car is being tracked by a police helicopter in Queensland, Australia. It was believed to be stolen. Knowing he's being followed, the driver ditched the car and ran away on foot. But he didn't bargain for this. One man and his dog interrupted their walk to tackle the wanted man to the ground. After a little rough and tumble, the dog walker pins him down until a police officer arrived at the scene. Before continuing his stroll, one cop had his own way of thanking the man. What? No high five for the dog? Now to South Carolina, where it really was a case of right place, right time when it came to saving a baby's life. And at the heart of the gut-wrenching incident was family man Major Hillard.
I'm married to my wife, Bonnie. We've been married for 10 years now, and I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3 going on 4-year-old son.
In November 2021, Major was treating his family to breakfast at a nearby restaurant, which was run by his friend, former firefighter Stephen Perry.
That Sunday started out as a typical Sunday around here. The restaurant was full. We had a nice little wait online, just waiting to get going. It's a breakfast lunch restaurant.
This family of 5, seated just yards away from Major's table, were also enjoying a leisurely breakfast that morning.
So the waitress came up to take her order, and that's when we noticed the commotion. My wife pointed out that there was a child choking behind us. A few people were shocked and didn't know what to do.
One of my servers came screaming in the kitchen for me, "Steve, someone's choking."
In the middle of all the chaos was a 10-month-old baby, unable to breathe and motionless.
My heart kind of sunk. I got a knot in my stomach. It was bad.
It was immediate. Like a shock of lightning went through me, and I knew exactly what to do. I ran out the building as soon as I saw there was an issue.
A strange reaction, you might think, but Major suddenly remembered he had a potential life-saving device in his wife's car. It's called a life vac. It fits over the nose and mouth and uses suction to unblock the airways. Major had never used this kit before, but reading the instructions was the last thing on his mind.
So I came in through the door. I'm taking the life vac out of the pouch, trying to put it together, staying calm, trying to keep my breathing, stay calm, recall how to use it. I look over to see if the baby's still choking. He is still choking. So there was a couple sitting at a table eating breakfast, and I said, sorry, and I swiped the table clean of all the dishes with my arm, gone to the crowd and kind of just pushed everyone away and said, give me the baby. And that's when I noticed the mother was rubbing the baby's head. He was white as paper, white as milk. His lips were blue, eyes rolled back. She was rubbing his head and saying, I love you, it's okay, basically giving her goodbyes. And that's like the hardest part that I remember. And I said, give me the baby, give me the baby. So the first time I used it, pulled too hard and popped off the mask. So I just yelled out, please hold his head, hold his head. I just called for Steve because I knew Steve was a firefighter. And Steve was right there without even, before I even got to it, started holding his head.
I kind of went into what we're normal to do, our normal protocols back in the day.
As soon as I pulled on it, it instantly worked. Even the first one I pulled, a large chunk of pancake came out of his mouth, so it was instantly working. He was still so unconscious and so gone. There was no movement or any response. I don't know. All I was focused on was the baby and helping the baby breathe again. That's it. So I have no idea what anybody else was doing.
But then, after an agonizing wait for the frantic parents and onlookers, the child started breathing.
And I could hear his mother and father and everybody starting to sigh a little bit. And she went to go grab him, and I said, no, give him a second, give him a minute, because he needed to get that air. And if you want to grab him and hold him, it's not going to help. So we gave him about 10, 15 seconds. He got a few more breaths in, and then he made a face to cry. And that's when I knew he was starting to come back.
Those are the best baby cries you will ever hear in your life. His mom had reached out to pick him up. His dad hugged him. They both kissed him.
I was still shaking for quite a while. The adrenaline was still pumping.
The baby was rushed to hospital, but Major and Steve had a long few days waiting to hear how he was recovering.
Once I heard he was doing okay, it was like a huge load off my shoulders.
The family came in probably 8 weeks after that, so picked him up and gave him a little hug. And he was his normal, playful self. He had a little smile on his face, and the parents said he was doing well.
We see each other all the time now. We keep running into each other. I'd never seen him before in my life. I see him at festivals, at stores, restaurants. Every now and then, we run into each other. Yeah. My life's changed. A lot of things that used to matter don't matter anymore. We're getting back to what's important. Shiny things, money, those things don't matter. Life is much more than that, and so fragile. Having that experience makes you appreciate things that you took for granted.
We love animals on unbelievable moments caught on camera. We think they are adorable, most of the time. A couple enjoying their honeymoon in the Galapagos recorded this sea lion wandering into their hotel complex. He'd obviously had a long day in the sea and fancied a change of scene. A chance to chillax and catch some rays on this bewildered man's sun lounger. We all remember the fable of the tortoise and the buffalo, right? Where a huge buffalo helps a stranded tortoise back onto its feet? No? Not sure what the moral lesson is, but it is adorable.
You got it, dude! You got it!
Now to the tropical islands of Turks and Caicos, and home of British national Mark Dufresne and his pet spaniel, Ziz.
Originally, I'm from South England, just outside a place called Aylesbury. That's where I grew up for 18 or so years.
In 2003, Mark and Ziz went walkies 4,000 miles to these picturesque islands near the Bahamas.
We have about 30 days of rain the whole year. It's pretty idyllic. It's kind of your generic white sand, crystal clear waters, beautifully calm sea. Yeah, it's paradise.
All sounds perfect, doesn't it? But it's not just Mark who's living the dream. Spaniel Ziz has also taken to tropical life like a dog to water.
He's a crazy dog. He's a spaniel, so I think he's just kind of always 100 miles an hour. It was definitely the right move to bring him out to Turks. He really loves the water and everything.
And it was in these beautiful turquoise waters where Ziz came face to face with an unlikely playmate. One of the island's oldest and most sociable dolphins, Jojo.
The first time Ziz and Jojo met was we were just out on a boat and I'd spotted a pod of dolphins just by us. So we kind of idled over slowly to them. Luckily, it was Jojo, which is known to be super friendly. And Ziz could just see these massive, like, black things swimming in the water. There was a pod of them, and they would just kind of swim around, and Ziz would just almost be part of their pod and just kind of swim around with them. And then they would circle behind him, nudge him from underneath and stuff. So Jojo was equally as interested with him as he was with Jojo, and they just really hit it off straight away.
Oh my God, yes!
Jojo isn't your average Atlantic bottlenose. He's been living and playing in the shallow waters of the islands since the 1980s. And as one of the few dolphins around the world that voluntarily interacts with human beings in his own natural habitat, the government declared him a national treasure, and he now has his own special warden to protect him.
What tends to happen is they circle each other. Ziz kind of just goes in big circles. Jojo either sits just behind him and kind of nudges him as if to kind of like play with him.
He's playing with the dog.
And what makes these interactions even more special is that most of them have been caught on camera.
We started videoing Ziz and the dolphins just because it was such a heartwarming thing to see.
Both Ziz and Jojo now have an online cult following who love to keep up with their adventures.
Funnily enough, he's actually not interested in any other animals. Like, we've got a cat who he hates. We take him on walks on the beach and stuff, and he has no interest in other dogs. So it's really cool that he does like some animals, and it's really cool that they are dolphins because it's a bit of a change from Hull city centre to the Caribbean swimming with dolphins. He's done pretty well out of his little litter.